Jersey boys. After being away from home for so long, it was nice to spend Christmas and New Year in Liverpool. We all got to see our families for an extended period, and Claire and I got to start making plans for our wedding the following July. We left for Jersey and checked into the Amport Bay Hotel for what would be the best part of 6 weeks. When I say we, I mean everyone but Holly. He went to Guernsey with Wolfgang. This would be the first of my many visits to the island in the following 25 years. We arrived and were greeted by Chris and a married couple called Steve and Jane. I didn't know back then, but they would become two of my closest friends. Jersey's a beautiful place, and because of my family's long-term friendship with Steve and Jane, we've been fortunate enough to visit there many times in the intervening years. It's that friendship that's enabled me to write this book. Steve and Jane have given me the run of their hotel during the winter, and that solitude has meant I could escape the daily grind and concentrate on telling my story. I get to spend a good few weeks staring out over the ever-changing view of St. Berlard's Bay. Its majesty never fails to disappoint. We were shown to our rooms and got ourselves set up in the large function room. The beer was ridiculously cheap, and we wasted no time in introducing our lips to the very nice breeder lager at 30p a pint. There were not a lot of locals in the hotel bar during the day, so whenever we wanted a scoot, we would ring the bell and Chris would pop down. This arrangement lasted about a day, as Chris was up and down like a bride's nightie. It was decided just to have a tab, and we were left to help ourselves. It was hardly rock and roll central, but we were made to feel so welcome by Chris, Steve and Jane and the barmaid Maggie that we settled in without complaint. When we weren't playing our instruments, we were playing darts, and this took the place of airfix and became the new hobby. It was here where Mark and Ped learned to play cribbage. I'd played for a few years, and Steve and Jane also played, so there were plenty of hours spent playing cards, playing darts and drinking. We had a couple of nights out in St. Helier with French John behind the wheel of the van, and we were minor celebrities in the few clubs that we visited. Jersey in the depths of winter is not the nicest place. The island is very windy and very foggy with bouts of heavy rain, and not a lot to do out of season. I enjoyed being there though, and there were quite a few highlights during our stay. A teacher from one of the schools on the island contacted us via the hotel and asked if we'd like to come into the school and do a careers Q&A with the sixth form. We turned up at the school and it seemed like a real Jim'll fix it moment for the pupils. We were greeted by screaming teenagers as we entered the school, but were promptly whisked off to the hall to face the inquisition of the older students. It was great to do something like that because schools would never expect to be able to reach out to one of the country's top bands without having to go through their record label or management, yet a simple letter directly to us was enough to get us down there. It was fun and good to do the unexpected. We sat in a row on 4 stools and answered questions for an hour before signing some stuff and posing for photographs before heading back in the van. The songwriting was pretty slow and becoming a bit ridiculous. In the space of 3 years, we'd gone from writing together in an old police cell to writing apart but at least under the same roof, and that arrangement had deteriorated into 2 camps writing on 2 separate islands off the coast of France. We'd prepare backing tracks and John would post them to Guernsey, and we wouldn't get to hear Holly's input until we arrived at Whistleord in a few weeks. On one of our jaunts into St. Helier, we came across a huge video shop. VHS had just won the format war and rental shops were now commonplace. This video shop was a little different in that they could order in any film for purchase. Ped didn't ask for anything under the counter. I asked the guy about some Cheech and Chong films and was told that he could order them in. They were best quality rental copies and would cost about £70 each, but I had to have them. The 6 films turned up a week later, and so began the Jersey Cheech and Chong Film Festival. Jersey was bone dry on the drugs front, so if I couldn't get any myself, I was going to partake via the Stone duo. We became obsessed with them, watching them repeatedly. I did manage to get hold of some hash oil for the night we all stayed in to watch the Super Bowl. I think it may have been the first to be televised over here, and we watched Joe Montana's 49ers beat the Miami Dolphins whilst eating popcorn, drinking Budweiser, and trying to find the easiest way for me to smoke the hash oil. I've never seen oil since, and it's not surprising as it's pretty messy shit to be involved with. Building a joint was harder than building the JPS Formula 1 car. Scraping sticky oil from cellophane and spreading it onto Rizzler papers with my big shovel hands was no easy feat. I can see why it never caught on. Ron Wisner came over to see us, and a meeting was called, which meant Holly had to pop over and visit us also. We were going to discuss our contract with ZTT and the possibilities of extricating ourselves from it. This topic had been simmering on our collective back burner for a few months, and we'd sought legal advice on both sides of the pond. Our lawyers thought we had a good case against ZTT for restraint of trade due to their insistence on us signing both a recording and a publishing deal. Ron's lawyers in the US were of the same feeling. If we could get out of the deal, then we'd have a queue of labels wanting to take us on after the success we'd enjoyed. We voice our opinions and we all think we should go for it except Holly. He felt that without Trevor we'd have no chance of success. If we were not all in agreement, then it wouldn't happen, and with Holly keen to stay, the subject was dropped. Holly left Jersey and we'd reconvene for the second session at Whistleord in February. Watching the Wildlife was written in Jersey, and I think we had some grooves laid down for what would become For Heaven's Sake and Luna Bay, but I can't honestly remember. We weren't the only band hiding from the taxman in Jersey. The boys from Iron Maiden were also on the island, but staying at the very imposing Grand Hotel. We'd met their manager Rod Smallwood a few times in the US, and we met up with him, Dave Murray and Adrian Smith, and ended back at their place for a few beers. They had all their gear set up in the ballroom of the hotel, and it made our gear look like Meccano. We might have thought we were big time Charlies, but next to these guys we looked like a skiffle group in terms of equipment. What was really good about being on the island was having a night out on the quiet. For the last few years we'd been living in each other's pockets and had been surrounded by management, label, road crew, fans, and never had a lot of time to spend on our own. The four of us went out a couple of times together to some posh eateries and had a good laugh being incognito amongst middle-aged people who didn't know or care that the noisy table in the corner were pop stars. During the last year of gigging and partying, I'd been on the end of a few bad heads, but nothing would compare to the one I caught in Jersey that winter. We'd been out to a club in town and there was a Malibu promotion going on. I got involved and was drinking half pints of Malibu and pineapple. I'm smashing them away like the milkshakes, and when I left and walked out into the brisk night air, I got sledged. I managed to stay upright in the van back to Antport, and I staggered into the hotel. I walked to the TV lounge and went to lean against the frame of the door. Well, you've all seen that Del Boy scene where he falls through the open bar. I lean, I miss, and I crash to the floor. I had to be carried to bed, and I stayed there for 24 hours. I awoke to find that my little 2-bar fire and my Filofax had got a liberal coating of pineapple-scented puke at some point during the night. There were traces of it on clothes I'd fallen asleep in. It must have looked like a crime scene. I got up at 11 p.m. the next day, drank a pint of milk, puked up cottage cheese half an hour later and then went back to bed. I lost a day of my life to the demon drink, and it was a real never again moment. I never wanted to feel like that again. Don't get me wrong, I still love a few jars, but time is short and days cannot be wasted feeling like death warmed up. We stayed on the island for a day short of 6 weeks before heading back to Holland to finish recording the backing tracks. The cracks in the band had been temporarily filled, but nobody was sure how long the filler would stay in place.